Hey everyone, long time no 2 months see, but with my return, I'll be selling out. I'll be making an iceberg today. This iceberg is about one of Sega's best games, Crazy Taxi. And if you've never heard of Crazy Taxi, get ready to learn a whole lot about it. I don't know about you guys, but my least favorite part of icebergs are always when they explain what an iceberg is at the beginning of the video. So I'm gonna do that.
An iceberg chart is a genre of video where a photo of an iceberg is shown with multiple layers and entries in each layer. Each layer is explained as you go down the iceberg, so to speak. The higher the layer, the more common that information is to your average citizen, meaning you wouldn't need an irrelevant, weird YouTuber like me to explain it to you. As you go deeper into the iceberg, the knowledge becomes more obscure and less known. It goes deep under the water, like an iceberg.
Anyway, let's take a look at my Crazy Taxi iceberg. I didn't want to make it a big deal, but I myself made this iceberg. I'm probably not the first, but this one, it's all mine, so that's probably why it's so poorly formatted. Basically gonna go on a bunch of mad tangents about the iceberg of what I consider to be the ultimate arcade game, Crazy Taxi. Tier 1, the fundamentals. Sega. Crazy Taxi was developed by a now defunct division of Sega known as Hitmaker, and a hit is definitely what they made. I love Sega, dude. They have a really rich history filled with a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but when you look at their games, they've made a lot of good ones. We have Crazy Taxi, Persona, Yakuza. They have a lot of games that have just shaved a lot of hours off my life force, Along with Nintendo, Bethesda, I know, and Capcom. They're definitely up there with one of my favorite gaming companies. And not to be a fraud, but my favorite Sega game isn't Crazy Taxi. It's probably Judgment from the Yakuza series or some sort of Yakuza game. But don't worry, Crazy Taxi is right after it. Persona 4 is really good though. So, I don't know. 1999. The game was first released in arcades in 1999, then later was ported to home consoles in 2000. There were a lot of other ports too, but I'm saving that for later, so don't worry about it. Premise. Crazy Taxi is a time attack arcade game where you play as one of four presumably crazy drivers, and in a time limit you try to drop off as many passengers as you can, while also rocking out to some great music. To make things more fun, you get a little bit more time when you successfully drop off a passenger, especially considering how quick you do it. And there's also a 5 and 10 minute mode, but arcade mode is way better. You also get bonus money for bobbing and weaving through traffic, and even more bonus money for generally batshit crazy driving, as long as you don't crash. Dreamcast. Although I mentioned it before, the Dreamcast more than deserves its own entry in this iceberg. Crazy Taxi was released in 2000 for the Dreamcast, and while there's some conflicting info on it online, it's either the second or third best-selling game on the console. It was beat by Sonic Adventure, but to be honest, that game can bite me, because Crazy Taxi is definitely where it's at. If you're a fogey and have also played Crazy Taxi, it was probably on the Dreamcast. Sequels. The first sequel was just called Crazy Taxi 2, and it had a good amount of content for new players to enjoy. A new location in the Big Apple was added, which was their sort of take on New York, and they also added the ability to pick up multiple passengers at once. It also introduced the Crazy Hop ability and a couple new minigames. Crazy Taxi 3 High Roller was the next sequel, and it added a new location called the Glitter Oasis, which is kind of like Las Vegas. It also kept the Big Apple from 2 and West Coast from 1. Interestingly enough, this one was actually released on the original Xbox instead of the Dreamcast, which I don't know if the Dreamcast was still around during that time actually, but it was released on the original Xbox. But from its Metacritic score, it kind of seems like the black sheep of the franchise. But it's not the worst. That one actually got its own entry. In 2007, Sniper Studios and Black Hole Entertainment partnered up to make Crazy Taxi Fair Wars. This game was really just a compilation of 1 and 2, but some really cool features were actually added. In my opinion, the most interesting feature that was added was a competitive multiplayer mode. If only I had friends that were interested in fucking Crazy Taxi, of all things. And sadly, due to budgetary reasons, they weren't able to add in a campaign mode that they wanted to add. And this is a Greek tragedy. I really wish Crazy Taxi had a campaign. That'd be so fucking cool. I can't really tell you what a Crazy Taxi story mode would look like. This game is the antithesis of no story, but it would have been cool. There's also Crazy Taxi Gazillionaire, but that one actually got its own tier. It's a mobile game, so it should consider itself lucky that it got its own tier, okay? Playable characters. In the original Crazy Taxi, you get the choice between 4 insanely Y2K era characters. You can choose to be either green-haired Axel, shade-wearing Beady Joe, Queen Gina, or old as fuck Gus. Each character has their own upsides and downsides like handling or speed. The rest of their characters and their own individual lore are to be explained in their own tier, actually. Commercial. Crazy Taxi has an excellent commercial. It's basically like every Sega character is crammed into a DMV and there's just havoc and screaming, and BD Joe's trying to get his own license back. A worker hilariously tells him that he isn't getting his punk license back, which was really fucking funny. And while she's telling him that he can't get his license back, she is showing on a TV gameplay for the game that is disguised as like the evidence of his reckless driving, which I think was a really clever way to incorporate gameplay into the trailer. And then while watching it, Joe brags to the people behind him about like how much money he made that day and how great his driving was. It's a really funny commercial that I'm sure got a bunch of people hyped to play the game back in the day.
Game rated T for teens.
Yeah, I'm here for my life.
Get behind that yellow line!
Yeah, I know. License, please.
You better get out of my face! Then I gotta get your punk license
Yeah,
back!
I
Look what I
know.
got on you! You drive through the mall, the subway, city line, you like a
That was some big air.
What's your problem?
Hey, that's what I get paid for. I made some serious cake that day.
Crazy Taxi on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
All that brief knowledge covers what I call the fundamentals of Crazy Taxi. The next tier is a pretty cool one, and when scriptwriting, I refer to it as slightly juicy. Thanks for interrupting me, asshole. I was gonna say the name. Now that I think about it, it's kind of a weird name, but here is slightly juicy. God. The Game Awards. Let me start with explaining what exactly the Game Awards are. They're put together every year, and they're pretty much the Oscars of gaming. We give out awards, well, I don't give out. Jeff Keighley gives out awards like Best Game of the Year, Best Soundtrack, Best RPG, which they usually do in the pre-show for some reason, even though I feel like that's a huge award, but let me not geek out over that. But the Game Awards also do a thing called World Premieres, and World Premieres are pretty much like trailers for upcoming games that have never been seen before except for at the Game Awards. And I really wanted GTA 6 this year to be announced at the Game Awards, but whatever. We got it earlier, which is even better, but it would have been really hyped to see it at the Game Awards. And goddamn did Sega show out this year at the Game Awards. They had a trailer announcing that they're going to revive a bunch of old dead franchises like Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe, and Crazy Taxi. So I'm really hyped for that. Needless to say, I will be glued to my bed, spending way too many hours playing all these games the day they come out. Product placement. So obviously blatant in-your-face product placement is really cringe. But something about how the first Crazy Taxi handles product placement actually feels really smooth and natural. So in the original arcade form of Crazy Taxi, passengers would actually ask you to drop them off at places like Pizza Hut, Fila, and Tower Records. There's also a billboard in the game advertising Dockers clothing, which is a brand I've never heard of, but according to Google, is real. My favorite place where passengers can ask to be dropped off is personally Pizza Hut, because the first time I played Crazy Taxi at my local arcade, I didn't know that there was product placement in the game, so I don't know why I just burst out laughing when a lady got in the car and asked to go to Pizza Hut. But sadly, later ports of the game changed places like Pizza Hut to Pizza Parlor and KFC as Fried Chicken Shack. So that's a real letdown, but I guess they didn't want to keep paying the companies. But to me, this just feels really hollow. I miss that damn corporate greed. Soundtrack. One of the things most people know about the original Crazy Taxi was its soundtrack. It had songs from the bands Bad Religion and The Offspring. And of course, the most well-known Crazy Taxi is the one that goes,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I really didn't want to use that soundbite in my video because that's the most overused thing when people talk about Crazy Taxi. It's the freaking Ya 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 song. And personally, I prefer the Xbox 360 soundtrack myself, but I had to. The soundtrack was changed for Fair Wars and the 360 port, though. My personal faves from the new soundtrack are Radical Sabbatical by The Days and Nights and Taking It Back by the Juliet Daggers. Either the new soundtrack or the old soundtrack, I think it was just a great decision to include banging rock music while you're driving a crazy person. It just takes everything to the next level. World record. As of writing this video, the original world record of Crazy Taxi is held by a YouTuber named Crazy Frank. His score was an incomprehensibly impressive amount of $178,384.99 to boot. The video of this attempt is 2 hours and 12 fucking minutes long. I cower in fear, but truly bow at your immense power, Frank, for you truly are crazy. He delivered a whopping 220 customers while playing as Gus. I don't think he can submit this as a legit score to a place like Twin Galaxies because he's playing on an emulator, but screw all that noise. You're the man, Frank. You're the man, bruh. Tier 3. Deeper. Multiple passengers. Starting with Crazy Taxi 2, you can pick up to 4 passengers at one time. It's pretty self-explanatory. Crazy Box. This is a mission-based mode present throughout all the games. They range from super fun to pretty annoying, but generally aren't really my thing. Probably the most well-known mission is where you have 45 seconds to pop 20 huge balloons on the stage. I suck at these because they require you to do all the tricks that my noob ass doesn't know. Oh, and Crazy Box was what they used to call your mom in the 90s. That's a good one. I like that. Kenji Kano. Kenji Kano is the director and co-producer of the first Crazy Taxi. He first joined Sega in 1993 and has worked on pretty much every Crazy Taxi game since. Tier 4. Crazy Tricks. Okay, I'm sorry to say, while I will be telling you about what the tricks do in Crazy Taxi, I won't be telling you how to do them because I don't know how to do any of them. I'm not that good at Crazy Taxi, but I'm very passionate about it. So here are the crazy tricks. Crazy Dash is the first and probably most well-known trick in the game. Pretty much what it does is that it allows you to bypass that little startup time when you start up your car and your tires screech until you could take off. It's a great way to shave a few seconds off your time and drop people off way quicker. Crazy Stop. This is by far the hardest trick in the game, so I will give you a tutorial for this one, okay? I think this is going to go over your heads, but I'll try anyway. So while you're driving, you press the brake button and wait, because it's about to get insane. While you're pressing the reverse button, you also have to shift gears into reverse at the same time. Jokes aside, I do love this trick. It's so simple, so easy, that it's the only one I could do. It's simple enough for a cretin like me to understand, and it's great for stopping exactly when you get into the circle when dropping off a passenger. It makes your car almost instantly stop. It is fire, trust. You can drift! If you do a crazy tailspin, it allows you to move your taxi in a crazy way. I don't know why, but when I was first researching the trick limiter cut, it was like a total mindfuck for me, but I'm going to try to explain it to the best of my ability, okay? So in the One Punch Man manga, there's a thing called a limiter that every character has. It's kind of a threshold where their character's power will plateau at a certain point and they can't get any stronger. Your taxi is also kind of like that. There is a top speed and you won't really go past it. But if you can pull off a limiter cut, you can go even faster than your supposed top speed. Fun fact about this trick, you can actually time it to the words Crazy Taxi, like by saying it in a certain way. Oh, and by the way, guys, thank crazytaxi.net for this info about the tricks, not me. They're the real heroes here, okay? Not me. And with the end of this tier, we're actually one tier away from my favorite tier in the Iceberg, but I guess this one's gonna have to do. Tier 5, Crazy Trivia. Game Boy Advance port. Okay, I've been dying to talk about this one specifically. It's a train wreck, but a fascinating one. In April of 2003, THQ thought it would be an interesting idea to port Crazy Taxi to the Game Boy Advance. And honestly, I do think it's an awesome fucking idea, but the actual game is kind of like a wet fart. I mean, the Game Boy Advance is an amazing system, I love it, but it's not a very strong one. The graphics actually aren't as bad as you would think they would be, but the frame rate is for shits, and the choppiness is just unreal. And a lot of the Crazy Box minigames just outright got removed. Interestingly enough though, Richard Woodall, the creative director of Graphic Slates, was quoted as saying that this was about the most technically challenging game you could do on a handheld machine. During that Game Boy Advance era anyways. And to that, I say tell that to the Zoe 101 game. I do think, though, a portable Crazy Taxi game would have been just beautiful on the 3DS. Arcade cabinets. So as I mentioned earlier, Crazy Taxi started off as an arcade game in arcades. And in this tier, I just wanted to inform you about the 3 different types of arcade cabinets that were used for Crazy Taxi. There's 2 cabinets for the original Crazy Taxi and 1 for High Roller. The variation is really only in the original Crazy Taxi cabinet. That cabinet has 1 seated and 1 not seated variation. The seated is way better, trust me, you feel like you're actually in a car. And the not seated one is cool, but not as cool. In the standing one, you just sort of stand in place with the wheel up top, and there is little pedals attached to the bottom that you put your foot on. I like the sitting one because it is immersive as fuck. So when I play when I go to the arcade, and I love it. It's fun as shit. Although I will say when I play Crazy Taxi in the arcade, I feel like my phone always or almost always falls out of my pocket. But maybe that's just because I wear baggy ass jeans. I don't know. The High Roller cabinets basically look the same as the sitting ones for the original, just with a High Roller logo on the top. Oh, and you can also change the gears from forward to reverse with a little crank that's next to you. It's actually on this side, but I don't want to change hands on my mic. Talking about this just makes me want to go to the arcade and play the game. Fuck. Locations. Every mainline, and just for the sake of you and me, I'm going to start calling the game CT. Not curse technique, but Crazy Taxi. Anyways, all the mainline CT games provide you a new location to drive in. All of them are based on real places in the US, and that's pretty neat. It all starts in West Coast, which is based off San Francisco. If you're a filthy casual like myself, then this is probably the only map you've played on. The next location introduced in CT2 was the Small Apple, which is obviously based off the Big Apple, New York. And the last location was introduced in 3, it's called Glitter Oasis, and is based off Las Vegas. Lawsuit. In December 2003, Sega filed a lawsuit against Fox Entertainment, specifically for the game Simpsons Hit and Run. Sega alleged that the gameplay of Hit and Run was too similar to CT. It was eventually settled privately, which probably means that Sega gave a bit of money for Sega to make all the problems go away. But since it was settled in private, we can really only guess. And while they are really similar, I think there's other games that are way more of an obvious example for games that are just almost blatantly a copy or just way too similar to a different game. Something like Foam Stars compared to Splatoon, for example. Gazillionaire. CT Gazillionaire was a mobile game released on the App Store in 2017. It's what's called a mobile increment game, and while I don't really know what the fuck that is, if you know the game Adventure Capitalist, it's basically that with a Crazy Taxi skin slapped over it. Let's just say that...
It was my cup of tea.
Tier 6. Crazy Characters. My baby, my precious baby of a tier. I love this tier because I think it's a really cute idea. It's just basically going over the lore and origins of each and every Crazy Taxi character. Axel to me is kind of like the Pikachu of CT. He's a mascot, and if there's anyone that non-players of the game recognize, it's probably Axel. His open shirt and green hair accentuates the early 2000s/90s aesthetic just perfectly. His bio describes him as a ladies' man and a hothead. Although in gameplay, he's usually a pretty chill guy. Unless someone tries to give him directions. He is not fond of that at all. He's 21 now, but has actually wanted to be a cab driver since the age of 10. He took a ride on a Crazy Taxi when he was 10, and he's just been obsessed with the profession ever since. And also his name is a pun on a car's axle. BD Joe is a second playable character in the original CT, and just generally a really cool guy. He's got a great sense of fashion and a really cool bucket hat. He's also the star of the Crazy Taxi commercial. He's 25 years old and a street musician. He's said to be especially skilled with using pots and pans as like a makeshift drum kit. He's a fan of chatting with his customers, and he's probably a great conversationalist. If you want to get to your destination really fast, but also have a great time, then BD Joe is the driver of your dreams. And before you ask me or comment, I don't know what BD Joe stands for. Here are a couple guesses I saw on Reddit though. The first one I saw was best or bad driver. Personally, I more so agree with best. He's a great driver. Although fucking reckless. The second one I saw was Big Deal. This one wasn't from Reddit, but some random site, and I don't think this one is likely, but it's really cool. Like Big Deal Joe, that sounds sick. And finally, the last one was one my mind thought of, but was also on Reddit. Big Dick. I hope it's not this one. I really hope it's not this one. Do you guys think BD Joe has BDE? I cannot fucking believe that I sat in front of my laptop and wrote that. God. This is my favorite Crazy Taxi character and also my main. I love Gina. She's a no-nonsense diva with a stylish leopard print shirt and bright red hair. She's 23 and absolutely obsessed with cars. A lot of her free time is spent working on her car and generally improving it. The website I saw said that she could get a lot of guys, but she chooses to focus on her car instead. She also just doesn't give two shits about what her passengers think of her driving. Her name is a pun on a car's gear. Gus is actually the originator of the Crazy Taxi method. That and the Fielder method have to be some of my favorite methods. He's 42 and said to be very competitive, and just like me, he's an avid gambler. But I'm a smart gambler who only gambles in the Oxa games with fake money. I also invest in the stock market, which my parents say is gambling. I don't think so, but tell me what you guys think, okay? Next are the characters from 2 and 3. First, let's start with 2, of course. And let me just preference that I love the character designs in Crazy Taxi 2. Besides Axel and Gina, who are just classics, I think the character design is even better in 2 than it was in 1. Slash is described as a pretty mysterious guy. With his bright white hair and flaming red shirt, he definitely sticks out in a crowd though. His emotion is said to swing around like a pendulum from real nice to real fucking mean. No one knows why he became a Crazy Taxi driver, but he is a damn good one. His design kind of reminds me of Evil Dick from Big Brother 8.
You're gonna stay.
I don't think so.
No. Trust me.
I think I have Eric.
He's lost a lot of jobs and is a huge fan of shifting the blame. Due to that, he never really had a long-term job or just any direction to go in. That was until he picked up a hitchhiker in his car. He got paid well, and after that just decided to paint his car yellow and become a crazy cabbie. When he's not on the clock, he's hanging out with his dog, BB. His look sort of reminds me of someone in a grunge band from the 90s like Foo Fighters or something. Cinnamon is a really friendly and super kind soul. She became a taxi driver to meet new people. She's 18 and damn, she is a year younger than me and already a crazy taxi driver. I need to get off my ass and get a damn job. As a crazy taxi driver, of course. By far the oldest driver in the franchise, Hot D is looking great for 78. His origin story is really fascinating too. He was a former stunt driver who went to West Coast to film a couple stunts for a new movie. While he was filming, a crazy taxi drove past him and he witnessed the glory of the crazy taxi industry. Ever since then, his goals in life have been to make money and catch a thrill. Hot D is a really cool guy, and here's a personal fact, that was my nickname in high school. Now on to the drivers who crazily roam the streets of the Glitter Oasis in CT3. This is probably my second favorite CT character, just design-wise. Angel is a total party animal and loves hanging out with his friends till like 3 a.m. For him, driving a cab was just the next thrill to chase, and he is another 18-year-old. His motto is "You only live once, so enjoy it." Big Spite is a really unique character in relation to the others, purely design-wise, because while most characters share a design with their era, like a grunge rocker or however the hell Axel dresses, Big Spite actually swaps that for a more 70s disco era sort of look. Big Spite's 24 years young and a pretty reserved guy. He's also an extremely talented driver, and there were over 10 companies that were scouting him for professional racing, but he turned them all down. He turned them all down to keep his life still private, not in the eye of the public, and to drive the best car, of course, a taxi. Miss V is a proud wife and mother of 7. She's said to be the moneymaker of her family, and when you can drive like her, that's pretty obvious. She was inspired to become a driver because her dad was a stunt driver. And now we've gotten to the final CT character, Sadness. Don't be sad that it's over, just be happy that my lazy ass wrote a script for it. He's a rough, gruff, and super secretive motherfucker. He sports some nice cargos with a black and yellow button-up and some sick shades. Zax is 36 years old and drives his car just about 24 hours a day. And if you're wondering what Zax exactly has to be secretive of, it's his awesome driving skills, of course. He's only ever taught his secret techniques to one old man because he sympathized with him. Everyone else who asked him was swiftly kicked to the curb. He's also said to have great hydraulic techniques, but I'm not a car guy, so whatever that means. And that was tier 6. I bet you didn't think Crazy Taxi characters had lore, huh? Now you have something to think or imagine about while you're playing the Crazy Taxi games. Now, let's move on to the second to last tier. This is the second to last tier, and if you're still watching, you are crazy. You're crazy for Crazy Taxi, and I appreciate that because we are one of the same kind. And I busted out this jacket I bought like in my freshman year of high school. Because, dude, it totally fits with the theme. We got a little wheel and shit. I look like a banana. It's perfect. Basically, in this tier, we're just going to be going over Easter eggs hidden in CT itself and some other games referencing CT. And if you don't know what Easter eggs are, they're just kind of hidden things you can find in video games that maybe reference something, nod to something, or just generally hidden content in video games. And here's the first one. Turn off guiding arrow. If you press and hold the left trigger while starting up a game, the big green arrow that guides you in the game will actually disappear. You'll know you did it right if a big message pops up on screen saying no arrows. And good luck to you if you do this. Unless you're like an OG who can actually go anywhere without the arrow. Then props to you, really. That's pretty impressive, dude. But in real life and Crazy Taxi, I'm way too directionally challenged to even consider doing that. Bicycle. This one is probably the most well-known Easter egg in all the CT games. Nonetheless, it's still a really cool one. If you click on both of the triggers in the character select screen, your taxi will transform into a big bicycle. It's a really fun thing you could do if your brain is slowly rotting after playing Crazy Taxi for hours and hours on end, glued to the couch, and your limbs are starting to lose function and you're going slowly crazy. I've never felt that though, so I've never turned on bicycles. It also breaks immersion in a very realistic game like Crazy Taxi, so that's just a huge no-no for me, you know? Very realistic game. Lego Star Wars. Okay, while this isn't a reference made in the CT games per se, it's a reference to CT made in another game. In LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, when you complete the mission Taxi Unfair, a transport official will hop into his cab and say, "I'm off to make some crazy money, yeah 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 yeah." And the delivery is 10 out of 10, by the way. He did great. This is not only referencing the thing you get told when you start up Crazy Taxi, hey, 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 are you ready to make some crazy money? But it also references the most iconic song in the game, the Yeah 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 song. And by the way, that song is called All I Want by The Offspring, if you didn't know. And I don't know, sometimes that song irks me because I feel like it's the only thing people reference in relation to Crazy Taxi, and it is such an awesome game that is way more than fucking Yeah 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 Yeah, you know?
I'm off to make some crazy money! Yeah, 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 yeah!
So I'm editing right now, and I didn't notice that I never filmed a segment for this entry, so let's do it now. Basically, as you may or may not know, you have a time limit to deliver each passenger to their destination, and if you don't do that in the time given to you, you get a bad reaction, and basically the person gets out of the taxi and kicks it, and it's pretty funny because the location of where you are isn't affected at all. Like, no matter where you are and you run out of time, they will get out. Like, you could be in front of cars, they don't care, they'll get out and kick your car. Very disrespectful, might I add. Okay, I know that wasn't like a huge tier or anything, but there's not that many Crazy Taxi Easter eggs, that I found at least. So now we'll move on to the final tier of the Crazy Taxi Iceberg. Together we've swam through the deep and treacherous waters to the very end. This is the bottom of the Crazy Taxi Iceberg. Tier 8, the end. Movie. So there has actually been 2 attempts to make a movie about CT, but as you can guess, they both sadly failed. The first attempt was made in 2001. The rights to a CT movie were acquired by Goodman Rosen Productions. They chose Richard Donner, which made movies like Superman 2 and The Goonies, to direct. I'm not gonna lie to you, 2023 has rotted my brain, and saying the word Goonies feels kind of weird now. Anyways, Richard Donner wasn't like a shoo-in random pick for a director. He was actually a fan of CT. What a legend, bro. At 71 to be playing Crazy fucking Taxi. Like, that is just too cool. I honestly wish this movie got made just so we could see his vision from a fan, because if something is made from not a fan, like a video game movie is made from someone who isn't a fan, I don't know, it's just kills my hype to see it, you know what I mean? Or, you know, like a video game movie about a very iconic franchise is made by a soulless animation studio who made the Minions, you know? But yeah, I would have loved to see the Richard Donner Crazy Taxi movie. May he rest in peace. He said that the game had potential to be a big summer event movie, and honestly, I completely agree. Especially at the time, they could have capitalized on that, like, wave of Crazy Taxi and all the arcades, and people were loving it on the Dreamcast. Like, that was their moment, and if they could have struck gold. They really could have struck gold. That's what I think. Wikipedia also says that the movie would have had tie-in merch like t-shirts and other stuff, and it's for damn sure I'd be wearing that Crazy Taxi shirt right now if that movie was made. The main reason the movie was scrapped was for an absence of plot elements. That is honestly hilarious, but also makes sense for a game like Crazy Taxi. I mean, you're just picking up passengers and driving crazy. Not much story there. But let's be real, guys. If we got a good creative writer on this, you can make a story out of Crazy Taxi, okay? You can make a story. Now let's go over the second attempt. Honestly, there's pretty much no info online about the second attempt to make the movie. All we know about it is that a studio called Mindfire Entertainment acquired the rights in 2002, and the release year was supposed to be 2003. It's been now 21 years, so no movie. Do I think there ever will be a CT movie? Probably not. And if you asked me a few years ago, I would have said that is for the best, because video game movies were in a very bad place back then. But honestly, there's been a kind of revolution with renaissance, I guess is a better word, for video game movies. There's been a couple good ones. Detective Pikachu, the Yokai Watch movie. I don't know. That's generous to say, but not you. Not you, Mario movie. It's just a shame we don't have a CT movie, okay? Even if it was shitty, I would have watched. This is me from editing again. I'm adding this entry actually because while I was editing this video, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, or Yakuza 8 as I call it, came out. And in Yakuza 8, there's a new minigame called Crazy Delivery, which is a mix of DoorDash, and Crazy Taxi. It's so cool. Obviously, it's Sega paying homage to another one of their franchises, but it's really fun. I don't want to show gameplay because the game came out like late January, so it's been like half a month. But you know what? If you're gonna play it, and you should, but if you are gonna play it, I won't show you anything. Just know that you're doing food deliveries, and it's pretty much like Crazy Taxi. You know, you have a time limit. There's different destinations where people are. It's a lot more simple, but it's just as goofy, and it's really cool. Also, the guy who introduces you to the minigame, who's also a pound mate, which sounds wrong, but it's the summons in Yakuza. He looks exactly like Axel, like he has green hair and stuff. So it's really cool. It's fun. Merchandise. Sadly, for a lover of plastic like me, I was really only able to find like 2 pieces of Crazy Taxi merchandise, and the first was an RC car. It was manufactured by a company named DSi, no relation to the awesome Nintendo console, and it was modeled after Axel's car. Had a passenger in the back and Axel in the front manning the hemming the man. No, what the fuck am I saying? Manning the helm. I wrote that in my script. Is that even like a thing? Do people man the helm? Can we woman the helm? I don't know. But soon after they released it, the company went bankrupt and, to my knowledge, is now defunct. At least the thing worked, unlike some other collector's edition RC cars. Batman. You can still find these online, but be warned, they are very pricey. They go for a pretty penny. Redemption game. So I guess there's what you'd call a spin-off arcade cabinet of CT. It's your average redemption game with a CT skin plopped over it. And if you don't know what a redemption game is, allow me to elucidate you. Redemption games are games placed in arcades meant to reward the player for skill rather than luck. While I'd love to tell you what you do in the CT redemption game, the images online are so low resolution and just crappy that I really couldn't make heads or tails of any sort of semblance of an objective in the game. But for what it's worth, I found out that it was 2-player, if that's any consolation to you. Car inspirations. So some dope people on Reddit were actually able to find out the real cars that the main 4 taxis in the original CT were actually based on. None of this is like 100% confirmed by Sega or anything, but it's a fun theory and it's pretty much right. They look exactly the same. Axel's cab is based on a 1960 Cadillac Eldorado. BD Joe's car is a 1963 Chevrolet Bel Air. Gina's is probably a 1965 Ford Mustang. And lastly, Gus's car is a nice vintage 1949 Mercury 8. He ate with that car. That's so fun. That's so stupid. But I'm keeping that shit. You better believe I'm keeping that shit. He ate with that. Even for the time of release of the original CT, these cars were about 40 to 50 years old, and now they're even more vintage. GamePro toys. So these little bad boys were really rare, so not a crazy amount of info is known about them besides the pictures. So all this info that I gathered was pretty much from looking at the box. So bear with me, but this is comprehensive, okay? I'm just saying that, but this is comprehensive. These toys were released in 2001 by the company GamePro. They feature a little model of the taxi with 2 passengers who have a peg in their butt to sit in the cab and the corresponding playable character. There are only 4 made. One was of Axel, one was of Slash, one was of Angel, and another was a prototype version of Axel. The prototype Axel copy was completely gray and only 5,000 were made, so good luck finding one. But if they weren't so ridiculously rare, you would for sure see one or all those puppies in my hand right now. Just imagine they're in my hand. They look really nice, right? Oh my god. Oh, they're driving now. Oh, shit. Oh. And yes, I would rip them out of the box and play with them. I don't know. That's the kind of collector I am. Like, I've never really believed in, like, keeping stuff in the box if it's, like, I guess playable or nice like that, because I don't know. I'm the type of collector, like, if I buy something, I'm not gonna sell it. I don't buy things to sell them, you know? Like, I buy things to buy them. Like, I have a Game Boy Micro that I play. I don't, keep it in a display. I play that shit. So, no disrespect or, like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with keeping stuff in the box. Just personally, that's not the type of collector I've always been. That's just how I've been throughout my life. Anyways, congratulations to the lucky few who actually own these. I'm totally not jealous, and I swear I won't rob any of you guys. Patent. On April 13, 2019, the patent for... God, that's such a weird word. The patent for the original CT's gameplay style expired. While I know this isn't like the most interesting trivia in the world about Crazy Taxi, I just mostly included this to rant. Look, take this from a 19-year-old kid with no business knowledge whatsoever, but I think patents on gameplay mechanics are frankly bullshit. It keeps the whole industry behind, technologically speaking, and frankly is just very greedy. One of the most notable examples of this sort of like BS is the mechanic in Shadow of Mordor, the whole Nemesis mechanic, that was actually patented for that dead-ass franchise and probably won't be used again until it expires. It was pretty much a system where the various AI orcs in the game could kill each other, or when you kill an orc, another would rank up in Sauron's army. So like, let's say you kill a enforcer and another one takes his place and becomes a new enforcer, and the old enforcer becomes the captain or whatever. Not the greatest example, but I haven't played those games in years. But the point is, that's a really cool mechanic, and no game is going to be able to use it because WB fucking patented it for a series that they have no interest in even continuing. So I just think, like I said, that keeps the whole industry behind, and it keeps really cool features out of the hands of gamers for no reason whatsoever. But yeah, that's pretty much just my patent rant. Patent's such a weird word. I don't like that word. Patent. Weird fucking word for a shitty thing to the gaming industry, you know? Next tier. I'm over this. Grand Theft Auto 3. Welcome to the final entry in the CT Iceberg. This has been a really fun video. If you're still watching, thank you. Thank you. Now, here's just a little background. This Christmas, my parents got me the GTA Remastered trilogy, so of course I started off with 3 since it was released first. And to my shock, when I got in a cab, there was actually a Crazy Taxi minigame. Basically, there's a little time limit on the top, and you pick up passengers and you go to the various destinations. I thought that was a really cool nod to Crazy Taxi. And, you know, it's just like Crazy Taxi, minus the big green arrow, awesome music, and personality. But it's still a nice nod. Don't let me be salty. But holy shit, GTA 3 pisses me off. I recently beat it a couple days, but I don't like it. I'm going to be honest with you, GTA 3 was not my cup of tea. I started Vice City already and love it. Vice City is awesome. But 3 was not it. I didn't like it. I thought a lot of the missions were really fucking annoying for no reason. And the fact that your car blows up after like 3 gunshots makes it really annoying if you have to do a mission involving that car, like a hit and run, but there's 20 guys shooting you. You know the mission I'm talking about, the something shootout mission? Yeah, fuck that mission. Fuck you, mission. Mission sucks. There's so much of GTA 3 that pisses me off. There were some cool things. I did like the story. I didn't mind Claude being a silent protagonist. He probably has the most drip of any GTA protagonist. Maybe Tommy. I don't know. They both have drip. But yeah, not really my type of game. Anyway, with that, we have braved through the entire Crazy Taxi Iceberg. It was awesome. I think this video was pretty sick. You let me know, with a like or dislike or comment or subscribe. But I thought it was sick. ダメだねダメよダメだのよあんたが好きで好きすぎてどれだけ強いお酒でも歪まない思い出がバカみたい